श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय।
Namaste, Sadhak devotees. I'm happy to welcome you back on our channel, Abhang Charcha. We had told you in the last season that we would be coming up with something new in the next season. So this is a special season which we are recording. Looking at watching our old videos, some of the devotees had mentioned us that some the stories which we had narrated were in Marathi, and their kids do not understand that language. For that, if we can narrate those stories in English, would be easier for them to understand the sara of all the Bhagavad Sahitya which we always discuss. With due respect to their request, we have decided. So, what all stories we discussed during last two seasons, most important stories of them will be now recorded in English. So those who do not understand Marathi will also understand what exact stories we already discussed with each of the part of Abhanga Charcha, maybe Navida Bhakti or maybe any of the specific Abhanga which we had discussed. So for this special season, I would request Maruti to come up with the first story, the Kathas which we had discussed. So he will take us through that now. Maruti.
Okay. Hello everyone and namaskar again. As Pranav mentioned, based on the request from most of the viewers who had school-going kids or who are mainly from regions where people do not understand Marathi, and they wanted their kids specifically for the younger generation to listen to all those beautiful stories and the moral behind those stories, how those stories are still relevant, because most of the stories that we covered were mythological, and they wanted to know all those stories and the principle behind it, where they had come from, how are they relevant, what are the mythological characters involved, etc., etc., and what do they signify. Each of the character has a specific meaning. Like in the entire Ramayana, Ravana stands for pride and ego. So every action that Ravana has done is based on the inner emotion of ego, which is motivating every action that he's doing. So the significance and all of that is something that people wanted to know, and hence we have started this special series where we'll cover all the mythological stories that we narrated in Marathi during our Abhanga Charcha, and we'll try to cover one story in an episode. If it goes further, we'll cut that into two different parts, and we'll still have them to uh, see on our YouTube channel in one go. The channel is still Maruti Revankar, my personal channel, where we'll create a separate playlist for this one where you can watch all of these stories. That's the preface of this special series. And as for people who are asking when is the third season coming, that is also coming up, where we will take another Hari part and we'll conduct the Abhanga Charcha, so that the season 3 will get a special launching on the channel. This will run as a separate series. So hopefully we'll be able to provide 2 videos per week. That's the target. Let's see how it goes. This story that we're going to touch upon today is the story of King Parikshiti, which is generally told in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam as the importance, the Grantha Mahatmya, which is explained. That is a place where the story is narrated. And one disclaimer, even before I start narrating the story, is that this is predominantly going to be in English, but also I'll take the help of the language Hindi or any Indian language, mostly Hindi as well, because the Indian philosophy cannot be narrated completely in English. There has to be we need to take some help from the Indian languages. That is where the Hindi will come into play. So the story of Parikshiti as such is, when I planned to narrate it, I wasn't able to find the starting point of the story, because the story goes back several chapters before in Mahabharata. So for the sake of narrating, for the sake of narrating, what I'm doing is we are picking a simple point from where people can get a little bit of background and then start understanding the story, and then we'll end the story with whatever happened mythologically and what is the, of course, the moral and relevance in our today's life. So the story goes like this. All of us know about Mahabharata, Kauravas, Pandavas, etc. So among the Pandavas, there were five of them: Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva. Arjuna's son was Abhimanyu, who was born to Subhadra. And when the Mahabharata war was going on, Abhimanyu's wife, Uttara, was carrying, she was pregnant. So it goes without saying that she was carrying Parikshiti at that point of time. So what happens is how the incident came up has a separate story altogether. But Ashwathama aims a Brahmastra at at Uttara's womb, because he wanted to finish off the Pandavas. Like after the Pandavas, the Pandava clan should not continue. That was his motive, and he aims a Brahmastra. And that Brahmastra, of course, once it is aimed and shooted from the bow, it cannot be taken back. So, of course, it reaches Uttara, and Uttara at that point of time surrenders herself in front of Krishna and says, "Please save my child. You are the only person in this entire universe who can save me and my child from the Brahmastra." Now, Brahmastra is a very powerful weapon. Now, if we get into a discussion of how powerful it is, it's a separate scientific and science and technology topic based on mythology. So there is mythology, there is nuclear physics, there is atomic energy, and how precision weapons and equipments were there in that point of time is a separate discussion altogether. But she goes to Krishna, and Krishna says, "Okay, I'll save you." So he takes Sukshma Rupa, which is a very subtle form, and through her breath, he enters into her, and he starts revolving around her womb, the fetus, the child. And because of that, the Brahmastra isn't able to penetrate the womb and or hurt the kid, the fetus that is inside her womb. And that is how Parikshiti is saved. So after 9 months, she delivers the child. And when now from the person whom I heard, the Katha that I have heard the story, they narrated beautifully that once he comes and the naming ceremony of the baby is going on, at that point of time, he inside has seen Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna was protecting him. And now when he comes out, he is trying to find, where is that person who was protecting me? Why am I not able to see him anywhere? So, so he does that examination, and examination is called parikshana. So parikshana kariti iti parikshiti. That is how he gets his name as Parikshiti. So he's named Parikshiti. He becomes a king, and at his birth, at his naming ceremony only, the Raja Purohits and all come, the astrologers come, and they start narrating. So they tell the father is not there because Abhimanyu has already died and Uttara is now a widow, but the Pandavas are there. So they tell the Pandavas that he's going to be a great emperor, and with a lot of empire to rule. He'll conduct around 100 Ashwamedha yajnas on the banks of river Ganga, everything. But he has his Jataka, or the Kundali that we have, has a dosha of apamrityu. So he's going to die by the bite of a snake. And at that point of time, the entire Pandava clan is All the Pandavas are suddenly, they're drowned in grief, and they go to Krishna what to do at this point of time. So Krishna says, do not worry. And from the very young age itself, what they teach him is dharma and devotion. So Parikshiti grows up to become a wonderful gentleman with lots of devotion for Hari and a person of righteousness. So he runs his kingdom with a lot of truthfulness. There is justice in his kingdom. There is nobody who's hurt. Everybody is living peacefully and prosperously throughout the empire. It was that prosperous of an empire. And one day, what happens is he's going to examine the his empire. It's called Nagara Parikshana at that point of time. One day he's going to examine his kingdom. He's going through his capital, and what happens is there is a beautiful story that is narrated within the story. It's a metaphorical, right, telling what was happening at that point of time, socially, economically, etc. Therefore, in the Bhagavad also, in the Srimad Bhagavatam also, it is called as a Rupak Prasanga. So it is just a metaphor, but it is telling the social conditions, because that was a time when Lord Krishna had left the abode. The, the Dwapar Yuga was ending and the Kali Yuga was going to start. So accordingly, there were changes because the Kali had his own effects which were coming into place. So metaphorically, the story is metaphorical, but what he sees is his passing through his kingdom, and there is a field. There's a farm where a farmer is working. He's plowing the field. And during those days, even today, in India at least, while plowing the field, you have two bullocks in front, and then there is a plow which is tied to them, and they plow the field. And there was a cow which was standing in the corner. She was crying. Why was she crying? Is that the bull which was tied to the plow, he had only one leg. His three legs weren't there. And in spite of that, somehow he was limping and plowing the field. On top of that, the person, the farmer, who was pitch dark colored skin, he was very dark colored person. Um, when I heard the story, he's described as a Kunabi. He was coming from the Kunabi community. He was dark color skin, and on top of that limping bullock, he was hitting him with the hunter. Parikshiti was furious looking at this. He was like, how can in my kingdom such a thing happen? How can, this is pure adharma. This is not just animal, it's not just animal cruelty, it is cruelty to its lowest. How can anybody do this? So he he asks the farmer to stop, and he takes his sword off. He says, stop, what is this happening? At that point of time, the farmer comes and begs in front of the kingdom and asks for his forgiveness. And he says, I am surrendering in front of you. Now, in front of a Kshatriya, somebody surrenders. He puts down his weapon. The Kshatriya cannot kill. निशस्त्र पे वार नहीं किया जा सकता, और शरणागत पे तो किया भी नहीं जा सकता. So he comes as a शरणागत, surrenders in front of Parikshiti, and he says, I'm sorry, but I have to feed my family. That is why I'm doing this. If not, then give me some other way of feeding my family. So why it is metaphorical is the bull which is there, it signifies the dharma, and its condition is actually the condition of dharma in Kali Yuga. Therefore, the farmer there is Kali. Now, the story says that out of 4 legs, there were only 3. The 3 were not there, and he had only 1 leg. What it means is there are 4 pillars of dharma. truth, that is satya, pavitrata, shil, that is purity, daya or dan, which means compassion or sympathy, and the fourth one is tapa, that is austerity or uh, the desirelessness or living in a form of austerity, austerous life. So out of that, today in Kali Yuga, even if you see, there is no austerity, nobody is performing tapa. Compassion and sympathy, we still lack a lot of. So, and purity is something I think it's good not to discuss about it. We hardly see any purity today. There was only one leg that was remaining, that was truthfulness, because the truth can never die. The truth has no death. The truth always survives. That is why only one leg was there, or the bull, and all the three weren't there. And the Kali, that was the farmer, was, in spite of having just one leg, the Kali, that the farmer was still hitting him with the hunter, which means the Kali Yuga is the dharma is constantly under uh, terror of the Kali, the constantly under the pressure of the Kali. The dharma is constantly harassed by the Kali. And looking at that, the cow, which signifies the earth, she is crying that dharma, and on me there is no dharma, there is only adharma and anachara. And that is why the cow, which signifies the earth, which is crying. So this happens in every yuga, and that is why in Gita we find that shloka where Lord Krishna says, Dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That is the answer to the earth. So looking at that, then the farmer finally comes, surrenders. He says, I'm Kali, and now the Kali Yuga has started, and I have to function. And on the entire earth, it is you are the emperor of the king. He was at that point of time, we had it that way. Like the kings who were ruling, they were kind of ruling on the entire earth. We have a lot of mentioning of other Greek rulers and Egyptian rulers or Chinese rulers who said that they covered most of the part of the earth, and that is why we call them this great and the great king, the great empire, emperor, etc. But the Aryan kings were actually at that point of time ruling the entire earth. That is why the Kali had to take his permission to start working. And he says, okay, then I'll give you 3 places where you can expand your family. Means you can start doing your work. One is Mansalaya, which the house of the butcher, where innocent animals are butchered and their meat is sold. The butcher house, Mansalaya. The second one is Dyutalaya, where the house of the gamble or the casino, where gambling is carried out. That is Dyutalaya. Third one is Madiralaya, of course, where the alcohol is sold, and Veshalaya as well. He gives him these 4 places: Mansalaya, Veshalaya, Dyutalaya, and Madiralaya. The place where the butcher house, where the meat is sold, the place where the alcohol is sold, the place where prostitution is carried out, and the place where the gambling is carried out, or the casino. Then he says, "Sir, you have given me all the places which are very dirty, and not lot of people will come there. I give me something else. Give me another place where I can reside, which is also glittery, beautiful, and nice." So the 5th place that he gives is gold or the wealth. Now people might ask if, oh, there is Kali in the wealth, so should we not accumulate wealth? So when he says wealth, he says the wealth that is accumulated by incorrect means or non-righteous means, the संपत्ति जो संपत्ति अधर्म से पाई गई हो, मिलाई गई हो. So the wealth that is accumulated by wrong means is something where you can reside. So he says that much, and he says, okay, I'm happy with this. Now I can carry out my work. So the Kali leaves, and the Parikshiti also goes back to his kingdom. So I know this itself is a lot of information. Now, what further happens, what Kali does, how it affects Parikshiti, and how Parikshiti dies with a serpent bite is something that we'll try and understand, and I'll and try and narrate um, in a way that everybody can understand. In the next episode, we'll see what happens. Until then, try and memorize these characters, because this is going to come in handy when you see the next episode. Of course, we'll provide a recap and then start the next narration as well. But this is good. Since this being the first episode, it is going to take a little bit of time to, you know, digest all the characters, understand where it is going, what it is uh, telling us, etc. So the moral till now is the king Parikshiti and the condition of dharma in his empire at that point of time, because the Kali Yuga is starting. We'll try and find out what happens next in the next episode. Until then, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and tell us what you think has to be still narrated as part of the special series in the comment section, and share it with maximum number of your friends and families. This is English, so I'm hoping that a lot of people can now understand. And do follow our channel, subscribe to our channel, click on the bell icon so that you get a notification every time we upload a video on the YouTube channel. Okay, and see you again in the next video. Thank you and namaskar. Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj ki Jai.